بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ما بعد. So we're going to be continuing inshallah with the history of the four Caliphs. We did Abu Bakr, Umar, and today we're going to be covering Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu anhu. So who is Uthman ibn Affan? His name is Abu Abdullah Uthman ibn Affan al-Umawi al-Qurashi, and his nickname is Dhun Nurayn. So he was a leader for 12 years, from 23 AH Hijri to 35 Hijri. So he was, according to the other calendar, it would be 644 to 656 CE, which is a common era. We know that Uthman ibn Affan was one of the Al-Ashara al-Mubashara bil-Jannah, those who were promised paradise while they're alive. He was one of the forerunners to Islam, and he was nicknamed Dhun Nurayn, the companion of the two lights. So, because he married the daughter of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ruqayya, first. Then when she died, he married Kulthum. Okay, so they were both married to the sons of Abu Lahab. So when the ayah was revealed regarding Abu Lahab, Tabbat yada Abi Lahab wa tab, Abu Lahab said, I don't want my daughters to be married to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, my sons to be married to the daughters of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they got divorced, although they didn't become full husband and wife. So so Ruqayya, she got sick in one of the battles that took place during when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a prophet. And then he married Kulthum after that. Anyway, Uthman ibn Affan was a very shy person. He was soft-spoken. And there's an incident where Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam one day was sitting with his knees or his legs showing, his knees showing, and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu came, and he asked for permission to come in. He came in, and then he spoke to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then he left. Then Umar came, he spoke to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then he left. Then Uthman, Aisha said it is Uthman at the door, and then Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam covered his knees. Then he let Uthman in, and then Aisha radiallahu anha asked after, why did you do that with Uthman and not the others? And then he said, should I not feel shy of the person the angels feel shy of? So he was someone who was very shy of, he was similar to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the other group, they asked me why did Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam do that? It's because Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did that. If Uthman came in and is a very shyful person, then he would probably not ask Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam everything, and he would just anything and he would leave. So anyway, that was his character. He was also a generous person. He gave a lot of charity, and you could see that how he prepared Jaysh al-Usra, the army of the Usra, which was the army. We learn about the Battle of Tabuk, where the Muslims were preparing to fight the Romans. And remember, one of the companions stayed behind, Ka'b ibn Malik. But Uthman, one time, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, who is going to help me prepare the army of Usra? And he will have Jannah. So Uthman put thousands of dinar on Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's lap, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Uthman will not see any harm after this. Also, when the Muslims came to Medina, the Muhajirun came to Medina, they found the water hard to drink, but they only drank from one well, and it was called Bi'r Ruma. And they belonged to a Muslim, so Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, why do you give this well for charity? And so he was charging people, and then he said, I need it for my children and my family. And then Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, who will buy this well from him so Muslims can drink for free, and you will have Jannah. So Uthman bought the well. Okay, so he was someone who's very generous. Also, he was very patient, and we're going to see, and forbearing, and that will show how he doesn't want to cause any problems amongst the Muslims, and that means because of that he ends up losing his life because he's so patient and forbearing. We're going to see how he dies. Okay, moving on from that, how was he before he became Muslim? So Uthman ibn Affan was born in Mecca. Some say Taif. Also, he was born 6 years after the year of the elephant. So he's 6 years younger than Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. 6 years after, yeah, 6 years. So basically, when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so he was older than Umar, but younger than Abu Bakr. Okay. Uthman was from a rich and honorable family. He was also rich. He was a businessman. He was wise. He was someone that people loved. He was different to Umar. He was a bit like Abu Bakr and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He never prostrated to an idol. He didn't drink alcohol. He didn't take part in all the ignorance that people used to do in his times. Also, he was someone who kind of knew the Arab culture very well. He knew their poems and all of that. And he used to travel as well. He was someone who used to travel. He used to travel to Syria, and also we're going to see he does travel to Habasha later on when when Muslims are being tortured. We'll look at that, inshallah. How does he become? So, if you want to, you can look at this picture. This is the Bi'r Ruma is still here today. Sorry, keep jumping. Bi'r Ruma, which is the well that he bought, is still there today. If you visit it, Medina, you can see it. Also, we're going to see how he expanded the masjid as well. This is how the masjid was at the time of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a model. He expanded it because there's more Muslims living in Medina. And also, this map shows the journey they took to get to Habasha or Abyssinia or Ethiopia now to escape the torture. Okay, so they went by boat. We're going to see that. I'm going to talk about that, inshallah. If I go back, how did he accept Islam? So he was a close friend of Abu Bakr, very similar to Abu Bakr as well. So Abu Bakr gave him da'wah and told him, you know, our people, they worship idols, they do all these haram things. They both didn't take part in that, and they said Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has become a prophet. And also in one of the journeys, he went to Syria, and then he heard people saying the new prophet has come, Ahmed, the new prophet. So the Jews and the Christians knew about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they were saying Ahmed has come. Like Isa alayhi salam says that a prophet would come after me, okay, and his name is Ahmed. So when he was basically at the forefront accepting Islam, he was a forerunner. So Abu Bakr was before him, Ali, Zayd ibn Haritha, and Uthman was the fourth man to accept Islam. Okay. Also, he was tortured by his uncle, Al-Hakam ibn Abi al-As ibn al-Umawi. So Al-Umawi, his uncle was torturing him and saying, leave this religion, you're abandoning the religion of your forefathers. And then he would say, I will never leave my religion, and this religion, I will never leave it. And so this is the reason why he migrated. Because at that time, Sumayya was killed. The family of Yasir, they were being tortured. Bilal was being tortured. So this is a time when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam allowed them to travel to Habasha. Okay. So Umar, the question is, how did Uthman come into power? How did he become the Khalifa? So Umar radiallahu anhu, he devised a new method for the next leader to be chosen. So he selected 5 people, or he called them the Shura members, and he chose these 5 people, and he said, from yourselves, make sure you choose one person from yourselves. So it was Uthman ibn Affan, Abdurrahman ibn Auf, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Zubayr ibn Awam, and Sa'ad ibn Abu Waqqas. Also, he made Suhaib al-Rumi. Okay, a-Rumi means a Roman. He was a Roman who accepted Islam. He said, you lead the prayers in these 3 days. So he gave them 3 days to choose a leader. And he said, choose one of you, 5 or 6, to be the Khalifa. So the reason why he doesn't want them to lead the prayers, because then people will think he will be the leader. So whoever leads the prayer is actually the leader also of the government, the Khalifa. So Abu Bakr used to lead the prayer. He was the first was Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. leading the prayer to show that he is basically the leader as well of the Muslims and the Prophet. And then Abu Bakr was the leader. He used to lead the prayers, and Umar like that. Also, Abdullah ibn Umar, which is his son, he told him just to be the counselor. He said, "You're not going to be the leader. I only chose them." To show that it's not like a king, it's not like a sovereignty, it's not a kingdom like people inherit to become the next leader. Also, he told Miqdad ibn Aswad and Abu Talha to monitor the election. So he told Miqdad, when you put me like in my grave, make sure you gather these people and choose one person amongst them. And he gave them only 3 days. He also made soldiers, just like the people, to look after the election, so there's no basically chaos. So you might say, is the democratic system similar to Islam? Not really, because here leaders don't start to promote themselves and say, or a person doesn't say, I want to be a leader and all of that. The way it's done is somebody chooses a couple of people, and he says choose someone from them. So it's not the person saying, like, Ali's not going to say, oh, I want to be the leader. Uthman's not going to say, I'm a leader. Whoever asks for leadership, you shouldn't be given leadership. That's the hadith. So anyway, so it's different to the other elections. The democratic system is our own Islamic system. And then Abdurrahman ibn Auf was made the leader to select at the end to make the final decision. So like Ali was saying, Uthman, you be the leader, and then Uthman was saying, no, you be the leader, and then they're also saying, I chose him to be the leader. So basically, it seems like the vote was going more towards Uthman. So Abdurrahman ibn Auf also went to speak just to hear the opinions of the women and the people, the people. So everybody was, choosing Uthman. So then he pledged his alliance to Uthman, and he became the leader. Okay, what did Uthman achieve while he was the leader? We're going to see all the expansions, but one of the greatest things he did was that he did the second collection, or the second stage in protecting or collecting the Quran. So with all these, you can see with Muslims reaching different lands, you can imagine Islam reaching all the way to Persia, people who are not Arab, reaching into like Africa, reaching to these places. So people, when they heard the Quran being read by the Arabs, and then the Arabs, they used to have different dialects. You know how we have the qira'at, the 7 qira'at. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam read with all of them, so it was different dialects. Like, it's a bit like how the Scottish have their own dialect. They say some words differently. Then you have for example, just like in UK, you have different dialects. Like London have their own dialect. So it's a bit like that. And so when the non-Arabs, when they see people reading with different recitations, they're like, I thought it was the same Quran. I thought you just say وَالضُّحَى, not وَالضُّحَى, and like that. So they were finding it confusing. And then Hudayf ibn Yaman said, you should do something before these people start differing about the Quran. So he said, we're going to send a copy of this one, the Hafsa, the one that is in Hafsa's house, a copy of that to all the regions. And he said, burn all the other ones. Okay, so obviously there's still the different dialects are memorized, but they're not in writing. So this is what he does. And also with the other achievements, he continued what Umar started with the finance and all of that, and the leadership. But one of the things he did was the invasion of Cyprus and the conquest of Constantinople, which was the capital of Cyprus. And the reason why they didn't, I don't think they opened Constantinople, but they went into Cyprus. And they went to Tunis, which is Africa. And also there was a battle of Dhatu Sawari. So if we look at the map, so Cyprus, you can see it's now divided between, it was like a hot center for the Romans to attack the Muslims. So they were actually come from Italy and Sicily, they come from Sicily, and they would use this as a base to attack the Muslims. So it's important the Muslims took this land. But obviously, when Muslims went to these people, they said to them, we're offering you to accept Islam. It was like that before. You either accept Islam. If you don't accept Islam, then you have to pay some tax. And Muslims wanted to conquer this place. They didn't force people into Islam. And they said we don't want to get into any agreements regarding the Romans. We don't have any communication. We don't have any power over them. But anyway, you can see, how did the Muslims get to Cyprus? So they started to prepare a navy. So Umar started it with Muawiyah, but then later on, Uthman ibn Affan finished it off with Muawiyah. So the first navy were prepared, and now they were attacked. They were surprised by these the Byzantine. I think one of them, they had amazing battles, and they actually, even though they were using fire and other things, but they were surprised by the Muslims. And one of the leaders, he runs back to Sicily, and then he dies there. So the Muslims were very strong, alhamdulillah. You can see they conquered all these places: Armenia, Khorasan, Kerman, Sajistan, Afriqa, which is Tunis at that time, Cyprus, in Arabic it's called Qubrus. Even now, Cyprus is divided into two parts. One part is the Turkey. The other part is just different. It's a Cyprus Republic. Okay, we're going to look at now how Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu died. Okay. So what happened was, there was a lot of, you can see Islam is reaching many places, is growing, and then the companions had their children, and then the children of the companions. And so basically the Muslims were expanding. There was new generations, and then it was a time, it happens with societies, when they become big as well, it's hard to control. Other peoples are able to cause problems. So the hypocrites started to spread rumors about Umar, about Uthman. They said Uthman is banning the Quran, and he's making his family members leaders in certain places. Although there's always a human mistakes, like every human makes a mistake, but then he corrected. There was one person he made as a leader, and it was actually his relative from his mother's side. And then they said he was drinking alcohol and all of that. And then Umar made him lose his leadership, and then Uthman made him lose his leadership, and he brought him to Medina. He got him lashed for drinking alcohol. So he corrected certain things that were done. But the empire got too big, and then the Jews, there was this man called Abdullah ibn Saba. He accepted Islam at the time of Uthman, and he was behind the plotting and the killing of Uthman. So they made a lie about Uthman, and they sent this letter out to say that Uthman, did this. And so they started to he started to gather a big group, a large group. They had different groups. They were divided into different camps. And they actually were coming at the time of Hajj. So when Uthman heard about this, because there was fitna, it's called the first fitna. And Uthman heard about this, he said he ordered nobody to protect him. So they besieged his house. They came to his house, and they were besieging it for 20 days. So the day when they came into his house, he was fasting, and he told Ali, Hassan, Hussein, all the other companions were trying to protect him. He said, "Don't get involved. I don't want any bloodshed." And so they broke into his house. They said they burned the door, and he was reading Quran and he was fasting. Okay, and he's saying to them, "Why are you going to kill me? Why are you going to kill me? What is your reason for killing me?" They couldn't, because you kill a person if he does this or this. They couldn't give a reason. And so a lot of them hesitated, but one person who was called Himar, or Al-Aswad, Himar means donkey, he went into the house, and then he tried to attack Uthman, and then Uthman's wife put her hand up, and then he cut her fingers. Then after that, some narration says he tried to stab Uthman, strangle Uthman. Others after that say that he stabbed Uthman in the stomach. And also some of the blood fell onto the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَسَيَكْفِيكَهُمُ اللَّهُ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ, that Allah will suffice you from them, and He's all hearing, all knowing. So And also, Uthman was saying, you know, I think first did he strike his hand as well? So he said, this is the first hand to write the Mufassal, the Quran. Some surahs in the Quran, this was the first hand to write it. So even there was a hadith where Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam once says, this person who's covered his head with a hood, he will be killed. And so the narrator says, I went to check who he was, and it was Uthman. Okay? So Uthman, like we said, he was forbearing, he was patient, and this is why he could have been worse. He didn't want people from the companions to die. It was a fitna. Okay? So Uthman ibn Affan was buried in this graveyard, which is the graveyard of the Muslims in Medina, in Baqi'. And later on, inshallah, we'll see how the next leader is chosen. But from then on, the fitna has begun. Like the fighting between the Muslims begins, and they kind of lose their focus of expanding the Islamic empire. As you can see from the map, like all Arabia was conquered probably by Umar, and then you can see how far it gets with Uthman, Umar, and then how far it gets. Not much was conquered at the time of Uthman, but then you can see just at the time of Ali how much was conquered, just out of the Sind. So it shows you Muslims. So the group came out who were called the Khawarij. They had this idea of killing leaders and Muslims, making their blood halal. Same ideology as the Shabab and ISIS. Okay, and also this other group called the Shia was starting to come about. They come at the time of Ali. They try to make basically. We'll see, inshallah. But that's when the kind of ideology of the Shia came about at that time. Allah Allah.